Okay, we are live for another Simon on the revolving shop chair. Yeah. Just like I'm hunting down sofas, everybody. I'm hunting them down. Sometimes I don't find them. But for me, the conversation is by far more important than just the sofa. Although the sofa can be sometimes a little bit more comfortable. So welcome, everybody. For all you viewers that follow Simon on the Sofa, welcome back to another episode. And for those who are new to Simon on the Sofa, then I hope you enjoy the beginning of your journey. So today I'm with I introduce many people as a wonderful, beautiful, magnificent people, but this is another inspirational man that I met a couple of years ago. Some of you may have seen the short talk we captured in Brighton Beach, where we sat on a groin and captured a lovely outside conversation. And I felt it was well overdue that Tad Hargraves, also known as the marketer for hippies or conscious marketer or a number of other beautiful things, is with me tonight. Hey, Tad.
Sorry, I had it on mute. Good to see you, man.
don't challenge me with your mic. Yeah, very good to see you.
So what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, like you've been on a mission, you know, the last few years, and I'd like to just dive in. I was walking here. I just took about maybe a mile walk here on quite a present way, and I was thinking about you a little, and I was on my way to this shop. A wonderful friend of mine, Andrew in Malta, has allowed me to come and use his shop tonight. I never put that there as product placement, but the conscious marketing is started. This is Why Not store in Malta. So I was having quite an interesting day, Tad, myself. I've had a little few challenges. I did some yoga, and I just wanted to check in with you and see where you were at. I didn't really have anything. There's a few things on my mind, but I mean, ultimately, you've been on quite a bit of a mission these past 2 years. So I'd love you to just give us a little update where you're at.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things that's gotten really clear for me, sort of a new tagline on my website, which is this idea that marketing can feel good. And so that's really been a lot of the heart of my focus over the last little while, is just seeing that the core challenge for a lot of conscious entrepreneur types is that marketing doesn't feel good. It feels bad to do it. We feel bad about the thought of doing it. When we receive it, it usually feels bad, and we don't usually look at the consequences and the impacts of what happens when it feels bad. Because there are a lot of techniques and tactics that you can use that work in the short term, get people to buy, get people to say yes, but they don't feel good. And the challenge with the not feeling good part is that it's not sustainable. People don't want to do the marketing then. They avoid it. When people receive bad marketing, they tell their friends about it and say, oh, you know, this guy marketed to me and it didn't feel great, so it hurts our word of mouth. We don't get as much return business. There's a lot of cancellations because people sign up who weren't a fit. So that's been a lot of it, and just this kind of this real question for me of like, why is it that marketing doesn't feel good when it doesn't feel good? And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the agenda is hidden. There's this agenda to get the sale at the heart of it, and that it's interesting. Like I read this great book called Monopolize Your Marketplace, and it talked about the 3 roles of marketing. And I've been sharing that a lot in my workshops lately, because it seems like I think most people think that marketing only has one role, and that role is to get people to say yes, to get people to buy. That's the role. So marketing is successful when it gets as many people as possible to say yes. And I would submit that that's not the role. In fact, there's not just one role, there's multiple roles. And so this is sort of my spin on the thing from Monopolize Your Marketplace, is that the first role is just to get their attention, just so they actually know you're there. That could be a provocative headline, a striking image, but it could just word of mouth is, you know, probably the best way that we get people's attention. Number 2, it's got a filter. So we've got to establish if it's a fit as quickly as possible. And because there's a huge cost to us in terms of time and energy when we get clients that are not a fit, even financially for us. If we get a client that isn't a fit, it's usually a waste of time. They usually ask for a refund, or they're just hellish to deal with. And because they're not a fit, they don't get great results. And because they don't get great results, they give us terrible word of mouth. or mediocre word of mouth, etc. And so when clients are a fit, though, they tend to get really good results because it's what we've got is a good match for them, and because they get good results, they have great word of mouth, and that word of mouth is just the engine in marketing. It's why most businesses that succeed is because they do such a good job. But the reason they can do such a good job is because they're working for people who are a good fit for their products and services. And the third thing marketing has got to do is it's got to lower the risk of taking the first step. So sometimes you can have somebody who's a perfect fit, who they get their fit, you get their fit, you both get that each other gets. It's, they want to work with you, but the risk is too high. And so there's this question of how do you lower the risk so they can at least take a step and move and try something. And really laying out those steps becomes an important thing. And so when marketing fails to achieve any of those roles, it just doesn't work. I mean, obviously, if it doesn't get their attention, the other two aren't relevant. But even if you get their attention and it's a fit and it's too risky, then it doesn't work. So that's kind of been a lot of my focus is on the idea of those three roles, and with the second role around establishing if it's a fit, not being afraid to polarize. There's a great marketing book called Polarize by Matt Cumming, and his idea is just that, it's like there's only three kinds of potential clients you can ever meet. The ones are yes, maybe, or no, and the yeses are like, yeah, I want to work with you, you're awesome. Just immediately the no's are just like, oh my god, what a flake. And the maybes are kind of in the middle. And the reason, but for most businesses, like 80% of their potential clients are maybes, and they're getting this neutral response from those people. I think because they're being neutral, they're not being really real and honest and authentic, and they're not being very clear about who it's a fit for and who it isn't. And so they get this kind of maybe kind of response. So I'm just really intrigued by those three roles of how do you get people's attention, and how do you, the filtering one for me is the big one. It's like, how do you filter? So that marketing isn't a seductive process. Marketing isn't this process of trying to convince anyone about anything. It's really just trying to almost push people away, almost like just filter people out. So the ones you're left with are ones that are perfect for you.
Yeah, I love that. And as you were speaking, I'm thinking a couple of things coming up actually, as always for me, because you may know when we spoke many years ago, I've been dancing with that challenge of how to communicate. It was something you shared in one of your workshops once, which really changed my perspective. Was that actually when you're marketing, it's communication, and you're actually getting people to know about you. You're sharing about yourself as opposed to this idea of just selling. Because the minute we come into this idea that we've got to sell something, that often brings up the competition and the competitive nature in us, that we have to be better than somebody else, or our product has to be better, etc., etc. So as you're speaking, there's a few things that have been coming up for me around this idea of conscious marketing, or new marketing, or green marketing, or even if you want new paradigm marketing, or all these different ideas of new ways of marketing, which a lot of them just look like a different a different name with the same different color jumper, same style sort of thing, And I know we spoke about this before, so we don't have to spend too much time in this, but I just know that's the case. And when you just spoke there about filtering people out, there's been this same thing keep coming up about the filter process, and I know you talk about this a little bit in your workshops and so on. The ice cream cone and a number of other ways to really get people across the island and so on. And again, if you want to elaborate on some of this, you can, because it's your field. But there's something that where I'm at the moment is in terms of I don't know what your views on this are, but in terms of systems and structures of our current society collapsing, and this idea that we still have to create product in order to sell. Money is still the driving factor of the way that we survive. We buy our food, we pay our rent, etc., etc. There feels for me this sort of I'm just not knowing of really how to fully communicate what we want to communicate. And as you know, my passion is just transparent communication across the board, sharing it as it is, the truth. But I still find that people are scared to actually share exactly the truth of what's actually going on, or what they want, or why they're doing it. And then this marketing seems to always have a little bit of insincerity in it. So I don't know if that's off. I don't think that's off what we spoke about, because it's sort of still how you sort of dissect and filter. So I don't know what comes up for you from there, but that's what's sort of been going on in my mind.
Yeah, well, I definitely like catch insincere moments on my own marketing, and other people catch it too. Um, and yeah, so there's definitely this ongoing process of getting clear, and we are in a very I was going to say tricky, but it's so much bigger than that. But just a very complicated, big moment in history where a lot is collapsing very fast. A lot of new structures are coming up, and I mean the reality is we don't need money at all. Money is not a human need. We don't need jobs. We need food. We need community. We need shelter. And yet, a lot of us are definitely still choosing to live in the system in some way, and maybe there's not even a way to get out of this system totally, even if we wanted to. And so money becomes this strategy, and if money is something that we're pursuing as a strategy to get our needs met, then there's this, it's like, how do we do it? Because most of us, it's like if there's this kind of suicide economy, then there's this more conscious economy. And most of us are really still in early days of making that leap. It is a culture. Like, was it like 2% of the coffee grown in the world is fair trade? In the United States, only 2% of the produce grown is organic. So as much as it seems like this, and it is growing so fast, and the permaculture movement, of course, like sweeping the world, and it's tiny compared to the mainstream, compared to what's there. And it's easy to get caught in the bubble and be like, oh, well, yeah, everyone's awesome. And it's just like, well, there's these bubbles of sustainability in this mass culture of insanity. And so we're sort of, I think, and most of us don't even buy all our groceries organic, or can't afford to. It's like, we'd like to, it'd be nice. And that's where it's at. We'd love to shop local all the time and always support things and always shop at the farmer's market, and just the realities of time and convenience. And I think as things are becoming more prevalent, that's shifting. But I know for a lot of people there is this sense of weirdness around the money piece, because then it's like, I think a lot of people I know, this dream of the world that they have in their hearts does not necessarily even include money. Like, we'd love to maybe live in a world where it's like Charles Eisenstein talks about, the gift economy. We're just sharing our gifts with each other and taking care of each other. And so then it's like, if that's our vision for the world, and here we are creating a business, it's like, to get there, at what point do we let go of the money thing? And it's tricky. And I think Mark Silver's take on this is my favorite, is that this idea that asking for money actually requires a lot of humility, because what we're saying when we're asking for money, especially if we're charging an amount that feels fair and is a fair price, not the highest price we can gouge people for, but we're just saying, like, look, I have needs. I need to pay rent, right now. I need to have shelter and food, and to do that, the way I'm going about it, money is required. And so I can give this to you, but I do need something back, because I wish I were God. I wish I could just manifest it, but I can't. And so there's this beautiful reciprocity. There's this understanding of, I give to you and you support me in this way, which doesn't mean people can't barter and trade and come up with all sorts of really beautiful ways to do it. But the challenge is, I think, that then when we start asking for money, it's just got to be done in a way that feels good, and that is right, and that is transparent, and that everybody feels good about it on the other side. I think this is one of the reasons I've loved doing Pay What You Can workshops. Like, most of my live workshops are Pay What You Can, because people are getting access to it and able to afford it and attend while keeping their dignity, and I still make money. But it's funny. There's this big question of, I saw this great meme on Facebook where it was like, because there's all this conversation about the minimum wage, and maybe we should be raising the minimum wage. It's like, what about the maximum wage? Like, is there a maximum wage? Like, at what point do we have enough where we can just, like, stop trying so hard? And oh God, the whole conversation around money is so big. And And I think what makes it harder is that we've got this vision of this world we want to see.
Sorry, say that again, Tad. I lost that last bit.
Yeah, Charles Eisenstein said, like this idea of the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. We've got this vision. And then in the marketing world, people are stepping up and saying, like, yeah, I represent that world, the conscious, the new paradigm and all this. And yet, then something about it feels so off. And so there's this weird, like, oh my God, is that the new paradigm? Like, that doesn't seem to fit with the world that I want to live in. And I think people are just craving the transparency. It's like there's a guy, Jay Abraham, his website's abraham.com, and he's like super capitalist, like intensely so, explicitly so. And yet I found his marketing is so much more transparent than most of the marketing that I see out there, even from a lot of my colleagues, because he's just so honest and real. He's like, here are my selfish motives for making this incredible offer, and here's what I'm hoping you'll do. And he's very generous in his marketing, but there's no pretense about it. And there's something really relaxing about that. It's like, oh, this dude's a capitalist who wants to make a lot of money, and he's giving me an incredible offer. Like, okay, cool. And I can just like chill out and be like, I know what's happening, as opposed to when people frame it as, like one of my colleagues is wrestling with this, where they do the promotion kind of style where it's like, here's a video with a bunch of content, but there's also a pitch in it, so it's like content pitch. And one of the guys, it's a duo, and he was expressing, we've been finding that people don't want to watch the videos as much because they know it's a pitch. And it's like, he's like, the truth is there's really good content in it. And I believe him because he's smart. So I believe they're giving away really good content, but it's like they know that it's like, oh, what I'm really watching is a marketing sequence and a series of pitches.
And that's become really like just so noticeable now. It's like so blatant, isn't it?
Yeah, and so then and it's fine if it's like, look, I think if it was framed as like, so, because J. Abraham did this, I went to a course and he's like, look, I've got this new program. If you sign up to receive the marketing, I just promise I'm going to give you more content in the marketing than you'll probably get at most workshops you go to. But he was explicit. It was shameless. It was just like, this is the deal. So you knew what you were getting into. But when it's like, sign up and learn all this stuff in these videos, but the stuff in the videos like actually not like the most profound content, or it's pretty basic, or even when it's really good, just when it's hidden, when the marketing we're trying to pretend that's not happening. I'd so much rather somebody just be like, look, can you give me 10 minutes so I can give like my best pitch for why you should sign up for this? I'd be like, yeah, 10 minutes, go. Bring it. I actually almost like, I'm charmed by it. I'm like, let's see your hustle, let's see what you got. Because I want something that can help me. So if they're like, look, I know you're dealing with this issue. Like somebody came to me and was like, look, you got an iPhone 5? Yeah. Battery sucks, right? Totally, battery sucks. It's dying all the time. I'm always having to plug it in when I go to the bar. It's embarrassing. And they're like, look, give me 2 minutes. I want to tell you about the Mofi juice pack. This thing is incredible. I'd be like, I've got 2 minutes for this. I want to hear it. And then I would have bought it, which I have. And they're the best. So, but it's so funny. There's maybe it's because there's a shame around marketing, or we feel like we have to just pretend we're not marketing. But it's like, the most recent blog post on my blog was a guy who, like, hey, can I submit a blog post? And I usually say no, but I kind of knew him. I was like, yeah, all right, what you got? But his whole thing was like that there are certain people that are just like hucksters, man. They're just like, they got hustle and they're just salesy, but it's so authentic. Like my friend Joey used to work at the hemp stand at the farmer's market. And it was just like Coney Island style, like thrown down sales pitches, but it was so engaging. And he would just have these crowds around him, and like people loved it. And he was just like so positive and really giving education, answering people's questions. But it was like a carny, like at a carnival. But there wasn't anything.
Right? But he was also enjoying it, right?
Totally. And people enjoyed receiving it. But there wasn't any pretense. Like, it's a stand to buy things. We get that. Where it would have felt weird is like, oh no, this is just an educational thing, and then it's like, as he's educating people, it's like, well, and you could like if you'd like, you could buy some, and like it was hidden under this. Like there's something about that would feel really like, wait a minute, I thought I was coming for an education. It's like when people go to a girl I was seeing she met this woman at a cafe, and they started talking. The woman's like, oh, I feel this real connection. We should go for coffee sometime. And she was like, oh yeah, okay. And they went. And it was an Amway pitch, and it felt so gross. She was so upset. She was like, I thought this was about us being friends, and you totally busted out this like presentation, and now you're pitching me. Or when people go to like a free seminar, but the free seminar actually doesn't have much solid content, but it's just a lot of hooks for the next thing. Or it's like, oh yeah, I'll watch these videos, and then it's like there's some content, but really it's mostly just like baiting and baiting and baiting. And
yeah.
And the videos. Like I remember one of my colleagues. He's still a great guy. I would host calls with him, but one of the calls, it was clear he was really just kind of reading his sales letter and the pitch, and he was doing that because that seemed to get a bigger conversion for him. And I was like, I don't actually have an objection to you doing that, or even hosting you doing that. But when I read the sales copy was just like, really made it sound like that call was going to solve the problem. It really gave the impression that if you sign up for this, you're going to learn the exact system. And I was like, that's not honest. And so then people are disappointed. And then they look, marketing was terrible. But,
And then the mouth is just gone at that point anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and so, but this is the thing, like, so you're talking about the sales funnel. And what's interesting in my mind is like the sales funnel, if you approach it from the agenda of getting the sale, it's one experience. If you approach it from the agenda of establishing a fit, it's a whole different experience. Because if I'm looking at the sales funnel as like, okay, what I'm trying to do is get every single person to the bottom of the sales funnel to the most expensive thing. Let's say the yoga studio. I'm trying to get everyone to sign up for the teacher training. Then what's going to happen is the experience of people, they'll go to a free class, but the whole free class, they're going to be like, you should come to our other classes, hey, come to a drop-in class. They'll be like, yeah, okay, and they come to that, and when they go to that, they're like, hey, you should totally sign up for 10 passes because it's cheaper. And there's all this kind of, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, high pressure to take the next step. So then they take the next step, and like, oh man, you should come to a workshop because our got this like, okay, I'll go to the workshop and then I'll teach you training. And it's like, so that's the experience of this constantly needing to defend. There's constantly this push and this pressure. Versus if the experience is like, if it's coming from the intention of trying to establish if it's a fit, then the pink spoons are generous samples, but it's really like, here's, it's like when you go to an ice cream shop, the purpose of the pink spoon is actually not to get you to buy the ice cream, like that flavor. It's genuinely just to be like, do you like the taste of this? If you don't, you don't buy it. It's not like, but a lot of marketing today, I feel like, oh man, so many threads here, but it's like, when the last time I was in London and I did my workshop, I asked people, or it came up in conversation. I asked people, how many of you resonate with this? Like everybody. Like you go to a website, around like marketing or business stuff or whatever, and before you can get any content, you have to enter your email. Like that's the only way to get free content is you have to enter your email and you're on their list. And I was like, who is frustrated with that? And like everybody. And so, but it really struck me. I was like, if you went to an ice cream shop, you're like, hey, can I try a sample of the pistachio? They're like, sure, just sign up on our email list. You'd be like, what the fuck? Like, no, I really just want to try a sample to see if I like. I know that's our policy. You have to be on our email list. It's like I'm gonna unsubscribe as soon as I get home. Well, you may do. It'd be like crazy, and yet we do that online all the time.
Exactly.
And so it's like I think it's fine to have some things that require an opt-in, but it's also good to give pink spoons that don't. But the purpose of the pink spoons, again, it's just like, here's the best nugget that I can give you that would help you figure out if this is a fit or not. Like that's the purpose of the pink spoons, is to give you such a clear taste of it that anyone it's not a fit for is out. Yeah. And then what that leaves is people who are like, that was delicious. And you're like, okay, well, if you thought that was delicious, here's the ice cream cone level of it. And not all of them are going to say yes, but some of them will. And some of them are going to be like, man, I just need more of that ice cream because it was so, and that's, well, here's the bucket. But some people will eat the whole ice cream. It's like, I think some of that was good, but I can't deal with the whole ice cream. I'm out.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going for, is to we're like courting rejection constantly. Like, that's the idea, is like, reject me, please. There's this great book called Models by Mark Manson. The subtitle is How to Attract Women Through Honesty. But this is his whole thing, is he's like, most men end up, in the friend zone or whatever, but end up getting a neutral response from women because they're just so not honest with women about who they are, their opinions, what they want. And so they're being really neutral, and they get this neutral response, and it's the same in marketing. When people are really transparent, but you've got to be willing to, and again, not just like get rejected, but support it and be like, great, you don't want to work with me? Thank you. I'm so glad we clarified that. Moving on. As opposed to, like, I know for me, dating, it was like, there were some women I was just so into. Who, if I was really honest, like, my colleague Ari Galper talks about it as opium, and we get addicted to that, the hope that she'll be interested. And they weren't. And if I just checked in and said, can I check in? Is there any interest here? They probably would have been like, no, you're great. I like you as a friend, but that's it. Oh, my God, the suffering I would have saved myself, if I just...
I lost you. We lost him. Stay with us, guys. We just lost Tad for a moment there. It's because he was talking about his relationships. But let's give it a moment. See what happens. Interlude. Conscious marketing interlude. This is where I sell you something. Hi, would you like to buy some Polisanto from the Why Not store? And if you don't like that for €1, you can buy some funky beans. Tad's back. We just had a marketing interlude there while you dropped off. Just finish off because I want to speak to a bit of what you said, but just you said that if like in a relationship and if you could just say to them again from that, like, walk up to them and just say, look, is there something, have I got a chance here, as opposed to like thinking you have got a chance and going for it anyway. Was that sort of what you was pointing to?
I don't know if I would use that as an opener. I don't know. Approaching a woman and being like, hey, do I have a chance here? But I mean, I was speaking in the context of like, just women who were in my life who I'd been interested in but never been honest that I was attracted. And and there were women who I just was like, I know, like, I'm really attracted to you, I like you, and I get the feel, I'm not sure if that's there on your side, and I wanted to check in. And there were some times where women were like, oh, I'm actually totally interested, and a lot of times where they weren't. And my intuition was right. But it's like I suffered pining instead of just asking. And in business, it's the same thing, like I remember when I was in London last time, I hosted a party, and there were like 3 or 4 people who I met, I think 4 I met at that party, who were brought by other people, but I just really liked them, and I really wanted them to come to my weekend. And I was just like, can you come to my weekend workshop? And they're like, well, what is it? And I just kind of was like, well, this is marketing for hippies, you pay what you can. You come. I want you to come, And that was my pitch. And they were just like, yeah, okay, sure, and I just asked, and I don't know, there's a way of doing it.
But Mark Silver, I just want to say there, but Mark Silver, I know who you're inspired by as well. Mark Silver sent out a lovely post recently about asking before you hit 0. Did you read that one? I don't know if you saw that one. And it was a really great, and he put like a meditation, a 15-minute meditation up, and he was just again saying to some of the things of what you said. I know there's this old talking like law of attraction or ask and it's given, but he said something that really I connected with, which is that our default state is that we want to give. Like, we want to give, you know. It's like it's something that we actually want to do. We're natural givers. We want to help. We want to, you know, we want to be there. And when we don't ask, when we don't actually ask for help, then what we're sometimes doing is blocking the natural circuit of the default state of people wanting to give and giving from an authentic place. So some people, in fact, it's so hard for them to ask, and I know I've had this issue myself because I'm such a supporter and a giver. To actually ask for help and ask for money and ask for support has been a big challenge for me, you know, because ultimately, originally, it pointed to some form of weakness or inadequacy, or that I wasn't maybe able enough or good enough in some way. So when I read his post and I did his meditation, it was really, yeah, it's actually become a little daily meditation of mine, of just saying, you know, I'm here to receive, and then asking for what I want on a day-to-day basis. And you know, it's not that I've received so much stuff since then, but it's definitely changed my, you could say, sort of frequency or perception of engaging with what I want, and I'm still in that process now. So what you're saying is, I think just being transparently clear on what you're giving and what you're asking for, I think is a huge, I think a huge change and a challenge in marketing, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm glad you agree with that. And there's something you said as well. I want to just throw in there is speaking to that lovely last offering and sharing that you gave, is that idea of the ice cream, because I know you've used that term for a number of years now, and you spoke to me about that when I came to Brighton and listened to your 3-hour free introductory workshop. And I think what it is for me is that people's vulnerability is okay. It's okay to say what you just said. You know what? I'm doing this because I want to pay X, Y, and Z. You know, I have bills. I have it. You know, I have this stuff. You know, and you know, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm offering. And here, like you said, here, this is where, you know, you opt in, and I do need your email address because that becomes my database, and I want to send you stuff. But you can opt out anytime. You know, just that clarity of communication. I feel. If everybody had that, I mean, even the way that we buy things would be so different, because I still feel that so many people buy. My mum's been caught on it, Tad, a number of times online where, you know, she just ends up buying something and she didn't even want it, you know, just because of the way that it's been plastered to her on email, you know.
Yeah, it's, you know, Louis C.K., I remember, you know, the brilliant comedian, he released, I think, one of his last specials online, and it was just like pay $5 and buy it from him directly as opposed to going through the networks. And he was on some talk show, but he just had some comment of like, I mean, yeah, I'm here because I want to sell my special. I want you to buy it, you know. And there was no pretense about it. It was just so honest. And yeah, it's just when people start pretending, when we pretend we don't need something and we do, people feel that, and it feels really gross. When I pretend that it's like, oh yeah, whether you buy or not, that's okay, but really actually needing it from this person in particular, this is where it gets off, because it's like needing from a business standpoint, we need customers. That's fine. That's really not the issue. The issue becomes when it's like, I need it from you in particular. Like, I need Simon to buy, and if he doesn't buy, I'm not going to be okay. Which is, you know, my colleague, Carrie Klassen with Pink Elephant Communications.com, she just is launching another round of her School of Kind Business. And a lot of the School of Kind Business is like, how do you create a business that's kind to you too? Because for most people, their business is not kind to them. Like the business model, the structure they have, it just sets them up in hustle constantly. Always draining them, always needing to work harder because they haven't thought through the sales funnel. They haven't created a business structure that worked. Like, I remember I talked with Mark Silver years ago, speaking of him, and you know, I've got like over 500 blog posts, 3 hours of video on my website, a 200-page ebook for the, like, it's more than is needed. And I was talking with Mark, and I was telling him about all these new ideas I had. Like, Tad, those are all free things. It's like, it's okay.
Sorry, I lost that. What did he say? That's all?
they're all free things. Like, just creating more stuff that you're giving away for free. And he's like, it's okay to like focus on making some money. You've given a lot of free stuff. And it was like, I was like, oh, yeah, right. I could just make a product to sell. Like, but I was just in that place of giving, and it hadn't occurred to me. And that wasn't being kind to myself, because the business model I had wasn't super sustainable. And so now over the next year, I'll be creating a lot more products. And the funny thing is, a lot of the people on my list are super excited. They're like, we're so glad you're, because then they can finally buy this thing they've been wanting to buy and like get my perspective on something. Yeah.
It comes down to value. What you're talking about here again is a friend of mine recently said as well. Is ultimately it's coming down to value, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what people want. And I think that there's just been this thin line. I mean, I know since I met you and what's on your website, and I mean, you know, I've never actually purchased a product from you, and your site has given me a lot of so much information, like you just said. You know, your YouTube videos and your blog posts. You know, some of your blog posts, just a few key ones around money and what I was going through a year ago, were so beneficial, and I shared them and passed them on and so on, and so that's like, yeah, there's a huge amount of value there, and like you said, I think naturally people are then happy to just, you do bring something out for whatever the price, and people are like, wow, you know what, they're already feeling that genuineness from you. Do you see what I mean? So it's like you've already covered that base. You know, somebody's like, well, look, like you said earlier, Tad doesn't need me or does need me. He's giving, I can just enjoy his free content, or I can support his cause and support myself by purchasing something. I just think there's a real, maybe it's this sense of not needing. Maybe that's what's coming up for me. It's like, maybe, I don't know where you are with this. Maybe at one point there was a neediness, maybe there wasn't, but there comes a point where you don't need, like you said, you're almost like, if somebody doesn't want, you're like, great, thank you, I'm so happy that you're not a fit. You know, it's like, I don't need you. You know, it's like, but if what I've got benefits you, then great, welcome to the tribe. You know. Totally.
Oh man, it's so much. It's so funny. Like early on when I started, I worked for a franchise of Tony Robbins, and a lot of the sales stuff I learned. It's interesting. A lot of marketing stuff I learned. I got connected to Jay Abraham. A lot of that stuff and felt good. Most of the sales stuff felt very pushy, and so. But to me, a lot of that sales stuff was very based on convincing everyone to buy, and everyone needs to buy, which is really a needy place to come from. Where it's like, I need every single person I talk to say yes, and if they don't say yes, I've failed somehow. So there was a lot of neediness there. But then, as I started to build the marketing for hippies thing, that kind of went away really quickly, and I didn't experience much neediness at all. And so, like, for now, at this point in business, I just don't. That doesn't come up for me a lot. Yeah. Where it's come up more, I mean, still it's like romantically, those types of relationships, I can still be like, oh my God, I'm the most neediest. Like, appalling. And so, I'm growing and I'm learning in that too. But I notice, when I'm feeling in a place, whatever the context is, when I'm feeling full and not needy, it's a lot more attractive, and I think it like gives people the space. Like, try this. Put your hands up like this. I've never done this. This is the first time. Okay. Clasp the hands together.
Like this.
And then pull as hard as you can with your right hand. Pull with your right hand as hard as you can. Pull. I didn't say pull back with your left, but pull.
Just with the right.
Yeah, but just pull with your right. Now, isn't it interesting that your hands haven't moved?
Yeah.
Like, your left hand immediately was like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
You will not drag me over there. And when we're in a needy place, we're pulling. And people, out of their need for autonomy, don't want to get sucked into that. And yet, when people are given space, whether that's romantic, if a man approaches a woman, whoever approaches whoever, and says, hey, I'm really into you, and they're in a place of like, and if you reject me, I'm going to die, and they feel that it's very uncomfortable. But if it's like, I just saw you across the street, and I had to come up and say hi because you were so stunning, and if I didn't, I was going to kick myself all week. But they get the feeling that it's like, oh, if I say no, they're totally okay. Suddenly you just get this transparent, relaxed conversation. They'll be like, oh my God, I'm so flattered. I actually have a boyfriend, but that's the nicest thing that you would come up, all the way to say that. And then if it's like, well, the loss is mine, but have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's a conversation where both people have been uplifted.
Yeah.
But if it's a conversation of, there's this funny YouTube from Saturday Night Live called Can I Have Your Number? And it's just a guy constantly asking for this woman's number repeatedly, and will not take no for an answer and just keeps coming back. And that happens in marketing and sales all the time, where people won't let go. They just keep calling back. Whenever somebody's like, I really can't, they're just trying to overcome the objection. Oh, and one of the other things you said earlier that I wanted to move back to was, it was around this piece, which I think connects to the neediness piece, is this idea of charging what you're worth.
Charging what we're worth, yes, good, yeah, speak to this.
Because, so this is just something that I hear from a lot of my colleagues and a lot of the scene is this idea. Charge what you deserve, charge what you're worth, you're undercharging. And I think that ends up causing a lot of trouble and suffering and neediness, because suddenly money has become connected to my self-worth. And so if people don't buy or aren't willing to spend that, but then maybe what they're saying is I'm not worth it.
Right.
And it also gets used in sales pitches where it's like, if you don't want to sign up for this $10,000 coaching program with all of this value, I mean $100,000 worth of value, you just have to ask yourself, maybe you don't think you're worth it.
Right.
And so that people go, oh, I should say yes and buy to affirm my own self-worth, and it's all this tricky stuff. But what if we just charged our prices based on the amount that felt right to us, based on our lifestyle and what we need, and our goals, and we could just be honest about that? Whereas, like, if somebody was like, if it's based on what we're worth, or that whole rack, and somebody says, well, what do you charge? I charge this amount. Why do you charge that? There's this bristling, this immediate defending without a lot of substance to it. But if it's like, I charge that because, these are kind of my expenses, and this is how much it costs to do it, and this is just the amount that felt right for the amount of time that I put in and sort of my goals of what I want to make. There's like no charge on it, and people can just be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or it's like, it seems like you're charging like a very low amount for this. Why are you doing that? Oh, I charge a low amount for that because it ends up being such a good lead generator for the other higher end stuff I do, and I'd rather have a lot of people in, that lower level, even though I would feel fine about charging more. I'd rather charge less and have more people in, because a lot of those people then want to sign up for the more expensive stuff. And people are okay with it. They're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like I went to this one workshop and they did the classic pitch at the end where it's like, this course is $10,000, and they built up the value of it. It's like, but crossed it out. Here's another. Today it's this. Built up the value some more, and then it's like, but for the first 27 people to run to the back, cross it with a different color marker. It's this, and it
They're
works.
still doing that. They're still doing that.
Oh, people still, yeah, totally. It's still being taught. And here's the thing: it works by the understanding of marketing being about the role of marketing being to get people to say yes. By that standard, it works much better than maybe some of the approaches I would talk about. But from the standpoint of the 3 rules of getting their attention, establishing if it's a fit, and lowering the risk, it misses that second piece entirely of establishing if there's a fit. And I was like, but they could have done that same pitch and been like, look, here's what I'd like to do. We're going to talk about our programs, because we know there's some interest in the room, and I'd like to sort of establish what I think the value is, because we charge less. But it's just important for me that you guys get what we've put into this, and why we're charging what we charge now. Because do charge less than we used to. And sometimes people are like, oh, it's not worth that much because of the price. But it's like, here's the method behind the madness. And, you know, we used to charge X amount, and we had a bunch of people come at that price. But it was our only event that we ever did, and so all of our money had to come from that. But then eventually we create all these back-end things that would follow up from that. Now we do this first weekend for free. But we do this weekend for free, and it's really good. Again, we charge for it, but it just leads into the other stuff, and so that's why we're doing it. We hope you'll understand that. You know, I would have been like, oh, it would have been the exact same thing. It would have been the same logical sequence, but with a different tone and coming from a different place. And if they additionally said, we just also want to be so clear who this program is for and who it's not for. This program is really designed for people in this place who are going through these kind of struggles, who want these kind of results, and who also resonate with our philosophy that we've just covered in this workshop. So if that's true, there's a good chance this is a fit.
Yeah.
You can sign up. But if these things are true, you know, like one of my colleagues in Victoria, Carmen Spagnola, she, on one of her sales letters, she does intuitive coaching and counseling and stuff. She had the here's who it's a fit for, but she also had the here's who it's not a fit for. And she said, you know, if you believe in a hierarchy of spirituality and ascended masters and theosophy, we're probably not a fit. And I was just like, I love you for putting that, because she'd probably had that happen a bunch of times where she realized, oh, people who believe that end up don't jive with what I'm talking about, and it's a waste of everyone's time. So she just put that up front. I was like, you know, and then you can still say, look, if you're into that stuff and you still feel like there's a fit here, I'm open to talking about it. But the intention, she didn't write the sales letter to try to get everybody to say yes. She wrote the sales letter to be so clear about who it's for, so that people who would be perfect for her would read it and be like, oh my God, this is totally for me, you know?
Yeah. Powerful. I mean, like, everything you spoke to there was really, I'm so glad you brought up this thing around neediness and worth, you know, honestly, Tad, because that, I mean, we could talk for an hour on that, and for people viewing and listening, just to listen to that, what Tad said again, go back, replay, you know, watch it again. There's a lot of nuggets in this talk, but that idea that everybody uses that thing is that you're not valuing yourself if you're not either selling it at that thing. I mean, you know, I don't need to repeat everything Tad just shared, but that is vital, because that is such a delusion. It's like the person who just wants that, you know, that amount that they need to get by, and they're happy. They could be the most valuable, you know, limitless, living their life so abundantly in the way that they're living, in the minimal that they might need or whatever they need for their family and friends, and to judge that as like they're not valuing it because, you know, that it's not up at 10 grand or they've not gone and purchased the, you know, the 100 grand or 10 grand product. I mean, that's manipulation 101, you know. It's like, well, I mean,
Simon, I think you would agree that, I mean, Gandhi was kind of a loser because he didn't charge very much.
Right.
You know, I don't know if he charged anything. I think he might have just like worked for it, like, just to get by, you know. He was a chump. And Mother Teresa, I think she just totally just like worked for like a room and board, and she obviously didn't value herself very much. You know, it's crazy. It's like that whole rhetoric around it is like, it's like anyone who's an activist, teachers, policemen, firemen, people who are working for like, you know, a wage that less than is like really worthy of what they're doing. Like that those people are somehow chumps because they are trading their time for money, and they haven't. I feel like that whole school of thought would have somebody from that school of thought would have sat down with Martin Luther King Jr.'s mom and been like, okay, you're doing a great job raising your son, and I know that's taking a lot of your time. You're a great mom. But you've been through so many powerful experiences, Miss King, and if you would just share those with people, I think it could really help people. And you could create a seminar series and books and audio cassettes, and you could build a real empire around that. And I mean, yes, raising your son, but you could have a nanny, you know, spend a lot of time with your son. Wouldn't it make more impact to build an information empire and support, you know? And it's just like, I'm not convinced that would have helped the arc of history bend more towards justice than what she did with her son. And so this whole thing of worth, it's just connected to money, it's like I just feel like they're completely separate conversations. They have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Yes, there's a conversation to have of like, is what you're selling worth what people are paying? Is there actually real value for the money? That's a very important conversation. But it gets, that languaging just becomes so slippery, and all of a sudden it's about me and my self-worth. And don't you think you're worth it? Don't you deserve this? Don't you deserve to give yourself this? And it plays to the ego and what, entitlement. And we've got such a culture of entitlement anyways, and it feeds it. It feeds this. So then people will spend so much money on a course that they may never use. I've met so many people who've spent like $10,000 on coaching programs that they have never really used.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the big
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's a great example of our culture, and like you say, as we're moving into maybe a more conscious, transparent way of marketing. I mean, that has to, like you said, just the way that you've broken that down in those two ways, that needs to be really clearly defined for people, just to not, because the minute you fall into that's actually how you did the beautiful hand exercise, but that's actually how you get pulled into neediness, right? That is the link. That's how you get pulled in.
Yeah, and it's funny. It can be like the pulling, but also the pushing. It's the same dynamic. Like I do these workshops all the time. Put your hands together, push with the right hand, and the left hand just pushes back. There's always this resistance. Whether we're pushing people or trying to pull them, it's different if we just create this space of letting them decide, honoring their sovereignty. There was this old story, King Arthur's story, and the sort of punchline of it. I mean, there's a big quest where this kind of beastly figure, Dame Ragnall, shows up at the court and says, gives them a challenge, and basically is like, if you don't find the answer to this question, terrible things will happen. And the question is, what do women want? And I feel like you could also lift this up to what do humans want. But, and then immediately, of course, King Arthur is just like, oh no, what do women want? Oh God, I'm doing, and searches the land, and come up with books and stuff. And finally, in the end, he gets the answer, and Dame Ragnall comes back and is like, so do you have the answer? What do you want? And he says, sovereignty. And she's just like, of course, you had the answer. But I feel like this is what all of us want, is we want the sovereignty, we want the respect of that we're going to make the choice. And in a marketing interaction, whenever that's really fully honored, it's like, hey, this is your choice. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to push you or pull you. I'm just trying to share what I've got. Make it easy for you to take a step if you want to, but this is totally your choice. I'm not going to play this game of selling you. I'm not going to play this game of trying to help you and convince you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think, you know what, a question that arose about, I don't know, whatever, 10 minutes or so ago, just as you were sharing, I was like, ultimately I was going to say to you, what's a beautiful, maybe a little bit forward-thinking new idea of the way that we can come together and exchange. And I just think you just really brought that in from this whole thing, because I love how today we've sort of brought it into the intimacy of relationship on a very transparent level, and I know you've used references of even intimate relation, connecting and engaging with intimate relations, but I think with that, the word sovereignty and honoring, what you've said is like, imagine just that engagement is that somebody comes to you for something and instantly your initial thing is like, okay, not only what can I give here, not what can I get, but what can I give, and how can I honor and respect this individual or person or group of people that have come to my website or come to my store or come to my product, and honor them and just say, look, I want to show you what's there, and there's absolutely no expectation, neediness, or clinging onto it. I mean, that for me, that is new community. That's a new way of communicating. That's a really rich way of, because you know what it does for me as well, Tad, is that, and I'd love you just to sort of bring, you can finalize in sort of this area, but it sort of brings to me that also it becomes that what we create also, we're not just creating products for the sake of selling them. we actually can start thinking like, what do I want to create to actually of value to bring to the world at this time, you know?
Totally. Yeah, oh, man, yeah, two thoughts came up. One is like, it's interesting because if I approach a woman sincerely and earnestly, and I'm just like, you know, wow, you're beautiful, and I had to say hello. And for her, it's not a fit because maybe she likes bigger guys with tattoos or more businessy guys or you know whatever. She's thinks it's not a fit. If there's not, if I'm being really honoring and it's not being needy, and I'm really just approaching to talk about the truth of what's there, it wouldn't be uncommon for her to say, "Oh, let me introduce you to my feelings." You know, this isn't a fit. Like that's not an uncommon thing. And in business, it's so true too, where you might make an offer to somebody, and they say, "Look, and they're like, you know, this isn't a fit for me." But I'll tell you who it's a fit for. And if they've been honored and respected, and they're like, "That felt really good, that interaction," they're going to feel so good about sharing it with other people. But if they feel like you can kind of get at them, they're never going to tell their friends about you. They're never going to make that intro. Even if you do the right thing and you ask for this forward like you're supposed to, they won't. You know, it's funny. I was just in Guelph and in Ontario, and one of my friends were there, and we ended up going out to this bar, Jimmy Jazz, and had a lot of drinks. And so it was myself and these two female friends of mine. And this charming British guy came up from London, and he just kind of joined our group, but he was super cool and charming. And it was like, yeah, and we were like, so let's get a bottle of wine. There's this like old footbridge, and we like probably ill-advisedly we climbed up into the rafters and sat there and read poetry. But on the way there, there was four of us. On the way there, this guy on the street came up and started chatting inside. But the vibe was really, it was really like trying to get our approval. It was something about it just felt off. And so when we were like, yeah, we're going to get this one line, it was like, great, let's go. And then pull aside and be like, I think it's just the four of us. And it was just so interesting to me, like within the space of an hour, two people had tried to join the group. One, we just like embraced and like, you're the best, you're super fun.
Yeah.
And the other one wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, powerful, and also powerful that you even had the just the confidence and the courage to actually say, you know what, this even in that situation, this isn't a fit, because I think that is a really brave, courageous thing to do, and I think actually courage comes into sovereignty for me. You know, it's very much about how we're moving into being more courageous and feeling safe and okay to say, you know, this isn't a fit for me. It's almost like setting a very safe boundary, and you know, and knowing that, you know what, it's not about how the other person feels as well, because if you're stepping into your truth and just, you know, really honoring yourself and honoring the other person, not by any means putting them down in a sale or even in a situation like you just described, then actually, you know, everyone's benefiting, because otherwise you're all there feeling almost, you know, what's the word? Like well, you're a fragment of yourself in that place, aren't you? You know.
I love it. I love the connection of courage to sovereignty, because we want to honor their sovereignty in the interaction.
Right.
The other person's always. But we also want to honor ours, and so it's like, what happens? Let's say if somebody comes to you and they're like, I really want to work with you. I really want to hire you. And something in you is like, no. And it's like, yeah, there's the money, and maybe you need it, maybe you don't, but something feels so off. You're like, if I'm really honest, I don't want to work with this person. And we say yes. Because we're like, okay, because I don't want to be rude. Maybe I need the money, but I also don't want to I don't want to offend this person. So we take them, but we're super half-hearted, if that, with them as a client. And they feel that. And we feel that, and it just feels awkward. Like, I knew if I'd not spoken up and said anything, that guy came with us, it would have killed the buzz of the whole evening. Because I knew the whole evening was about dealing with him and his need for approval.
Right.
And trying to manage that. And just saying no, yeah, and honoring our own sovereignty as a group, and sort of standing up for that. Because I could feel like nobody else really wanted him to come along.
Right.
So for that, it held the space, and we had just the most romantic, wonderful, fun evening. Which
Beautiful.
wouldn't have happened if he was there. And this happens, like, let's say you're hosting a workshop, and you're so excited about your workshop. You've got it all designed. You've got the best venue. You've really thought through the content. And it really feels like this gift that you want to give to the world, and you're so excited to give it. And then somebody wants to sign up, and you're just like, oh, no, they're not a fit. But they seem like they really want to come, and you don't want to be rude, so you let them in. It kills the whole vibe of the weekend.
Right.
And so then suddenly your thing that you've given is not as valuable for everyone else there. And so that we do need to take a stand for the space that we're creating and the space that we're holding, and our own sovereignty. So I love that. I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Open up the whole I'm curious for you with the whole authentic relating and transparency and all that. I'm curious what you're most fascinated with these days. Like, where have you been? Like, what's your edge? Where are you most curious or fascinated these days?
Yeah. It's a great question. Where the whole transparent communication is taking me at the moment, and it's funny you just mentioned about a workshop, but it's moved me into, because I've been doing workshop, one-day events, sharing circles, personal sessions, one-on-ones through communication, authentic communication, and conversations is where it's at for me, and sharing circles, authentic sharing, where a group of normally 8, maximum 10 people come together, we hold space, close our eyes, and then go into inner inquiry, and from that space of inner inquiry, there's a real, like what you just said, actually, there's a safe container for authentic sharing, and each person holding space for the other person, and not there to give advice or guidance. That's really been that's really been where the space has taken me, which has been profoundly powerful. And what is pushing me into at the moment is actually a term I'm using, which is, everyone knows it, but actually a retreat called Naked. And this it's a 7-day retreat, and it's basically inviting a small group of people, again 10, 12 maximum, and to actually look at what it means to really be naked, and not just, and that's a metaphorically as well as authentically, but like naked expression, naked emotions, naked communication, which is transparency. What the communications led me to, Tad, in this sort of inner inquiry into what is truth and what is love, and how to communicate that, it's actually taken me into a space of my sexuality, through intimacy, and also into facing death. So transparent communication for me has really looked at what are we willing to die to in order to express our sovereignty, express our truth, and also how can we really fully show up in that naked expression of who we are, which is why I'm so buzzed by this conversation with you, because you were pointing to this idea of not needing somebody else or some product or something else to fulfill us, but actually, if I can show up as a complete being that's taking care of my 50%, i.e. my 100% of the relationship, then I can meet you in your completeness, and we can show up and share from that space. And if I can engage with you like that, and with my family and my friends, and like you did with the 4, in that is exactly the same as what you did with that 4, that group, is that if you can show up from that place, I feel that's the basis of a real community birthing. Because if a community can birth from that place of diversity, honoring and respecting the other, first and foremost ourselves, but then honoring and respecting the other, and being totally okay in our skin, totally okay as we are, not needing to fix, not needing to repair, not needing to be more, but just realizing that, we are here right now. Who are we in this moment? That's really where it's led me at the moment. And I'm really quite excited in what you've shared tonight, is how to also, with this retreat first and foremost, is how to really bring all what we've shared and the way that I'm exploring myself into that offering. And what you've really done for me tonight, which I want to really thank you for, is you've actually sort of given me the reason of how to offer this, not with like, I need everybody on it, like I need this to be a fit for 8 to 10 people, and that is it.
Yeah. And then it's like, you know, if you need it to be a 5th grade or 10 people, then there's just this question around, okay, what's the strategy, marketing-wise, that's needed to get those people there? Like, you know, given that it's only going to be a fit for so many percentages of people, then how many people do we need to reach? And then it's just a thoughtful strategy. We're just getting tactical about it in a way without the hype and the drama. Okay, to get this result, we need to do this. I'll do those things.
Right.
Something.
And Tad, I just want to throw in there as well. I just want to throw one thing in there for you. Without this need, and this is from my experience, without this this need to hype things up, yeah, that's the real key. I just want to be transparent. I no longer want this like, you need this, you don't need this. I don't want this hype. It's just like I just don't need that, you know.
Well, and it's what you were saying about in the groups where it's like people sitting in a circle sharing, not giving advice, just really listening. To me, that's the vibe of marketing. Like, to me, the vibe of marketing and relating in that kind of way, which is really a sacred way, is I'm just trying to get you. I'm really just trying to understand where you're at and to understand if this is a fit. You know, and I went to a retreat, this guy Tom Compton, who does the work of Byron Katie, and one of the things he said is, like, you know, the truth is the only agenda that works. There's a lot of hidden agendas we have, but the truth is the only one that works. And if we bring that into marketing, where my only agenda is just to get to the truth of, is this a fit? Even to the extent that I'm willing to push somebody away to be like, or test them to be like, I'm not sure, I really want to be sure this is a real fit. That works every time.
Amazing.
If I bring that agenda, but if my agenda is I'm trying to get you to say yes, and I'm willing to sell my integrity, it doesn't. And I love that idea of making it. I think that's so beautiful. To me, that's really where I connect with that is that idea of polarizing in marketing. That we're often afraid to be so naked. That the reason we get such a neutral response often from the marketplace, so many maybes, is because there's a lack of vulnerability. We're not being naked. We're not being honest about what we're offering, how we see things, our map, and our kind of point of view, our perspective about it. And so then people can't make a choice. There's something so beautiful when people are willing to just be authentic and transparent. Some of the best responses I've ever gotten on my blog were rants, where I was just like, I'm pissed about something. I went on a rant. The whole I wrote the blog with charging what your riff is bullshit.
Yes.
And I still have that one getting shared.
Yeah, that was one of the main ones that I was sharing.
Yeah, and it's. But I was just being fuck, I just got to say this. Yeah, so I just love that idea of nakedness in relating, because it's so trustworthy.
Yeah, and you know, and for me, Ted, I feel that the evolution of our species, and I know that you're so passionate about community, but I really feel that the way, I mean, I know I watch the Noosphere, and I read and watch a number of content, and I'm a big, I love Charles Eisenstein and a number of other forward thinkers of our time. But I really feel that the only way that we're going to evolve, or maybe even continue as a species, is if we step into that naked communication, that nakedness. It's like really that's what that's my experience anyway. It's changed my life immensely, and continues to challenge me and invite me to to how bare can I be even more, and it's the effect that it's having, that I'm witnessing, and not that I'm by any means taking I'm not taking like that it's me doing it, but when I hold a space, when I co-create a space with the other people in the circle, because there's no hierarchy, there's no I'm the leader, we all show up as equals. And when that space is created, the experiences that I've humbly had the joy of witnessing have been profound, Tad. I mean, it's just like, it's almost like when that happens, you have to continue. It's like, wow, this is something special going on.
And there's something about, you said the words like being comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
And in my workshops, which I got from Authentic World, which now has a branch of Authentic Europe, which I'd love to connect you with, this idea of posturing and collapsing.
Right.
And that, posturing when we puff ourselves up, collapsing when we fall down, and that posturing tends to come across as like an overconfidence, whereas collapsing seems like a lack of confidence. But the place of composure is very much, it's not about, oh, they're really confident. To me, the best wording is they're comfortable in their own skin. They're very okay with their issues. And in my workshops, I also talk about Island A and Island B, which is from Bill Barron, and ideal clients are on Island A with some problem or symptoms they don't like, and they want to be on Island B where there's some results are. And one of the things, I haven't written a lot about this, but it's an idea I want to explain more, is that when people are on Island A, sometimes I think what keeps them there is there's a lot of shame. There's this feeling of like, I shouldn't be on Island A, damn it, what's wrong with me that I even have this? And when they can meet somebody who, James Hillman had this quote. He said, people go to therapists not so much to get their problems fixed, but for a blessing. They go to get their problems blessed. So when somebody can say, help them see, like, here's the goal of on Island A. Here's the beauty of where you're at. It's like, yes, you have these symptoms, but here's the opportunity in it. Here's where it's actually the biggest blessing in your life to have gone through this. That they can just, like, relax, not feel so much shame, which is a huge gift to them and to the world. But that's also the thing that unlocks it for them to take the next step. When people get loved and met right where they're at without needing to change, that's the thing, that changed it. When I went through this huge heartbreak 5 years ago, and it was like 5 years of just couldn't get over it. And this guy, Tom Compton, he was like, I hear that you're heartbroken. He said, what I want you to sit with is how is it actually a blessing for you and her and for everybody if you never ever got over it. And not like you don't get over it and so therefore you're okay with it if you're over it. Like you're messed up for the rest of your life. How would that be a blessing?
Yeah,
that's how it was. I could finally find a place where I was okay with it. And then it was like, and what's also interesting is if you can really hold that place of like, yeah, you're on the island road, you're fucked up, and that's okay, because there's actually a beauty in that. There's a beauty in the heartbreak of where you're at.
Right.
That takes so much pressure out of the sales thing. Because now what I'm also not doing is just really trying to get you off Island A because you shouldn't be there, and that's a problem. I'm just like, yeah, you're there. I get it. And it's a beautiful thing. And like, if you want help, if that's a fit, for sure we can work together. But I'm not like coming from this place of judgment about where you're at. I'm just like, oh, you're there, and wow, what a powerful thing. Yeah. Which is the thing that has people also feel honored and respected, which is ironically the thing that's going to have them lean most in towards you and be like, oh, can I work with you? Could you help me? Ironically.
Right. Right. Yeah, and what you're saying there is actually funny. What I went and did a 10-day teacher training for yoga recently in May in Barcelona, and it was something lovely about the teachers, and they were doing this pay it forward. You'd love it, Tad. It's basically they want to bring yoga to the people, and they're giving free teacher training over 10 days at a time. That you take yoga. It's called Yoga Makes a Difference, and it's that you take yoga to your community, to your friends, maybe to your family. Maybe you just show somebody a sun salutation. You know, it's like you might show somebody a breathing technique, right? And that's your give back, right? And you know, and the beautiful thing is they're so passionate about yoga. They live, breathe it, they teach it. That they, you know, one of the key things was that, you know, you just meet people where they are. That's it. You just meet people where they are. You're not trying to get them all to do, you know, forward bend, back bend, upside down asana, this, that, or the other. If you meet somebody where they are and you get them to lift their right arm up and do a breath in and a breath out, then that's yoga, you know. And it was such a very, just what you're just talking to, just a very beautiful way of coming from a much more sacred, honoring, authentic place. And really, I mean, that's this. I don't know how you feel, sort of as a sort of summary of our talk, but that feels like that is where we are going as a community, as a living, you know, as a living, breathing, you know, being. You know, it's like, you know, how can we first and foremost honor our life as a miracle that it is, and how can we then see others as that, you know? And then we don't even need to hard sell people or try and manipulate them. It just doesn't come into existence.
Yeah, it's a whole different context. And it's funny what you said about meeting people where they're at. To me, that's a really beautiful way to look at the sales or the business model. It's just having different levels that can meet people where they're at, where it's like maybe they can't afford to financially take the time, emotionally it's too risky to do a whole thing, but it's like, okay, let me give you something free that will just help you, you know, but meeting people where they're at and having the business thoughtfully put out of because for some people doing a 10-day thing would just be too much on every level, so overwhelming. But if there's something free they could get that would be helpful, a little tiny thing that would help them take a tiny step, great. Yeah, it's well, I've just loved this talk. This has been great.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, I feel really like I got like a really beautiful, warm feeling from this whole conversation. So I want to thank you immensely, as always, and just thanking you for your time, and also, you know, just because it's always beautiful to share gratitude, but just to be great, you know, I'm grateful for all that you've brought into the world for me anyway. So and I know so many people that I've introduced your work to as well. So even 2 years ago when I met you and you was doing your workshops and I come down to the little gathering, I'm thankful that we've co-created this little talk, and I hope that this also supports others on their journey, you know.
Me too.
So listen, we will speak again. And as always, I'd just like to say, yeah, I just feel we've come to a beautiful completion there. But Tad's links will be underneath this video. Marketingforhippies.com, as always. Yeah? Marketingforhippies.com. How many times I've put that URL in, but you have to check just in case. Yeah, just take what you can from this conversation, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to Simon on the Sofa. Transparent conversations that are created really for myself and for the world to just see that we can all come together and share from that place, you know, from that place of vulnerability. It's okay to share where you're at, who you are, what's going on for you. And I always invite you to have the conversations with people around you. Create your own show. Go out there, just spark up conversations, because conversations is where we're at right now. And the more people that feel safe to express what they're really thinking and feeling, that's how we support each other. And that's really, for me, how community really grows and thrives, you know. So thank you very much. Press subscribe if you feel like it, but there's no pressure. If it's a fit for you, enjoy. And Tad, big love to you. I'm just going to let you wave to everybody. Give a wave out there. Big blessings to you, Tad. Thank you very much. Take care.
Sure.
Bye-bye.